In today's episode, the second of our third podcast series, I'm thrilled to welcome Stacey Fleece. Stacey is a seasoned leader in the financial sector, currently serving as the Senior Vice President of Production and Sales at Pinnacle Loans. With extensive experience in managing teams and driving success in the mortgage and lending industry, Stacey brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to our conversation. In addition to her professional achievements, Stacey is deeply involved with the Sparkle Foundation, an organisation dedicated to empowering women and supporting underserved communities. Her commitment to giving back and her passion for leadership are truly inspiring. Stacey also hosts the popular podcast InspiHER'd, where she highlights the stories of remarkable women making a difference. In this episode, we'll dive into Stacey's journey to become SVP of Pinnacle Loans, explore how her leadership style has evolved, and discuss the challenges and rewards of balancing a corporate role with her philanthropic efforts and podcasting ventures. We'll also gain insights into her involvement with the Sparkle Foundation and hear advice for aspiring leaders in the financial sector. An engaging and insightful conversation with an influential leader. We hope you enjoy today's episode. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our latest podcast. I'm here with Stacey Fleece, and Stacey is Senior Production and Sales Leader at Pinnacle Loans, amongst other things. I'm looking forward to my chat with Stacey today. And Stacey, over to you really, just to expand on my mini introduction.
Good morning. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I know, well, evening, afternoon for you, morning for me. I'm here from San Francisco, so the beauty of Zoom that people from across the country or across the world can really be together. I am Senior Vice President of Pinnacle Loans here, based in the Bay Area, but we have lending teams really all over the country right now in about 10 different states and continuing to expand. I've been in this industry for about 20 years. Prior to that, I actually ran hedge funds, worked on Wall Street. I'm a chartered financial analyst, so have a little bit of a different background than you would typically see somebody in this industry. But we are professionally, we are a culmination of all of our experiences that go into what we do on a daily basis and how we operate in our positions. So certainly all of that has led to the current role that I have today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's an interesting career switch from finance and being in hedge funds into real estate and having sales as a big part of your role. Could you just give us a bit of the history? How did that journey take place?
Yeah, calling it an interesting career switch is probably very generous. It's weird, let's be honest. There's not a lot of people that you would see make that transition from a Wall Street position running a hedge fund to current role running a sales team in mortgages and real estate. And it was an interesting switch. Well, without going into too deep of detail, when I was running hedge funds was during the 9/11 attacks here in the States. And I knew a lot of people in the buildings just because of what I did. And a lot of Wall Street firms were based in the Twin Towers, but it didn't really matter if you knew people in the buildings or not. I think that event really made everyone kind of take a step back and relook at what they were doing and why they were doing it, and did it make sense in their lives at that moment in time. For me, at that point, I had my own hedge fund with one partner, which was a pretty significant accomplishment for somebody of that age, and especially for a woman. There were very few women that were running hedge funds at that time. Honestly, there probably still are very few today. Certainly on a percentage basis, it's quite low. So I was pretty proud of what I had accomplished relatively early in my career. But at the time, I had a 9-month-old son, and I was going to work at 5 o'clock in the morning, coming home at 7 at night, and really felt like the nanny was raising my son here 9 months in. And so I had to make a decision. Really, did that make sense where I was in my life at that time? And do not regret the decision that I chose to change to a different part of finance and change to a career path that gave me more flexibility as a young mother. I am still frustrated here 24 years later that I felt like I had to make decisions that my male peers did not. And that part still frustrates me. They all had a lot of them had young children, but they had wives at home taking care of the young children. I was the wife, just not at home taking care of the young children. So there is still a little bitterness in me that as a woman, I had to make decisions that were different than the men in my chair had to make. But I did make the right one for me and my family, and switched over to a career that is quite different, although still in finance. And very interestingly, I think a lot of people would look at hedge funds, being involved in hedge funds as somewhat of the gold standard of finance, and then moving over to mortgage banking, not so gold standard. Certainly not even at that time when I made the shift. It was about 6 years prior to the mortgage crisis over here. So things have changed a little bit in our industry post mortgage crisis, but at the time it had a little bit of a somewhat of a used car salesman sort of vibe, right? At least publicly. So it was very interesting to me to be same person, same education, same experience, same life experiences, and treated very different at cocktail parties when I tell people I'm a hedge fund manager versus when I tell people I was a mortgage banker.
Right.
So the shift was not only kind of weird just in a career trajectory. It was a very strange experience for me from a personal perspective, and okay, I'll admit it, a little bit from an ego perspective.
Yeah. And what was it that particularly attracted you then into real estate at the time?
I actually had a friend who was a very successful real estate agent down in San Diego. And she used to always say to me, you should become a mortgage banker because they all suck and you'd be really good at it. And I was like, oh, please, I'm a hedge fund manager. Like, why would I ever do that? So then when hedge funds really stopped making sense for my life, and I really needed to make a shift, I felt like being in Wall Street and having Wall Street jobs trained me for nothing except other Wall Street jobs. And that's what I was trying to get away from. And so in the back of my head, I had Allie's voice saying this to me. And I thought, okay, well, I don't really know what I'm going to do, but what I do know is that type of role gives me the flexibility that I'm feeling like I need for my family, for my children, well, child at the time, children now. And so decided to give that a shot. Literally, like, decided I would try it on for size, but honestly had a really hard time telling people what I did for a living for probably the first 6, 7 months. I don't even know how I got business in the first 6 or 7 months because I didn't want to tell people what I did for a living. Again, back to my ego, people treating me very differently than when I told them I was a hedge fund manager. So somehow, I don't know, somehow I managed to get clients. But I do very distinctly remember waking up in the middle of the night one night, like a brick had hit me over the head, and finally thought, maybe you don't want to tell people what you do for a living because they do all suck. So maybe it wouldn't be that much harder to be better than everybody else. And so kind of changed my approach, and actually really utilized my Wall Street experience and my deep financial background as a benefit to my clients, in the sense of like, hey, I've got this deep financial background. I understand sort of how real estate finance works, not just as a silo, as a loan to buy your home, but also how it works within the total picture of your financial being. And it's just a piece of it, right? And so taking that approach and being able to have that approach, which most of my peers did not, was kind of my new trajectory. And then at that point, I was willing to tell people what I did for a living. They still treated me differently, but again, the opportunity to sort of take the industry and take it up a notch in terms of how I approached it, was the opportunity I was seeking at that point.
Thank you. I thought, look, it's interesting. I work with all manner of people in all manner of sectors, and many of them in sales roles. And there is still a little bit of that challenge that people have about being perceived as salespeople. They take it off their business cards or the equivalent. So you're a business development manager or an account manager or a client partner. But people seem a little embarrassed about sales. But fundamentally, sales is about great customer service. It's about helping people with things that they need, and doing that as professionally.
It's a hospitality role. It's a service role, really. And if you are at any company, if you are on the income side of the income statement or the balance sheet, if you are bringing income, you are in sales. So when I was running hedge funds, we had to sell, quote unquote, our hedge fund. We had to bring in new investors, new limited partners. I may have been a hedge fund manager, but honestly, I was still in sales every day. And so I think what people miss is, unless you are on the expense side, you're likely in sales directly. And if you are on the expense side, you are very much in sales indirectly, because even on the expense side, everything you do impacts the experience that your clients have, that your customers have. And it's that experience that you need to make sure is top notch in terms of client service, hospitality, whatever you want to call it. Otherwise, you're not going to get any more clients.
Yeah.
So I don't care what chair you're sitting in, everybody is involved in sales at a company on some level.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. My daughters love a program called Selling Sunset. Do you have that over in the US?
We do.
Yeah. But it looks like a really glamorous life in real estate, particularly I think they're based in the Los Angeles area, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So how close to the truth is Selling Sunset versus your experience of real estate?
Well, I mean, that's a lovely editing job.
Mm,
And shows like Selling Sunset focus on the real estate side of it. They have, $1 million deal or whatever it's called, based in New York. And these real estate agents, they are licensed real estate agents, but they are also characters within a show. Reality shows are, some percentage reality, some percentage perception, and a big percentage editing, right?
yeah.
So, the real estate industry is quite exciting, and it is a very good industry, but the glam is not quite there. I think if you talk to any real estate agent, there's so much non-glamorous stuff that goes on behind the scenes that you're only seeing kind of the front end side, and even that is a little bit a little Hollywood.
Yes, indeed. But well, it's convinced my daughters that maybe their future lies in real estate. So
It's a great industry. It's not going to look quite like that.
yeah.
But I love that they're even considering it.
Yeah, and certainly here in the UK, it doesn't look like that. So they'd have to move somewhere significantly warmer to get Selling Sunset. We're selling rain. That's what we're doing. And particularly in Ireland, and I know you mentioned you have some Irish heritage. They are definitely selling rain.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I picked up that you mentioned that you made the career switch around about 6 years before the we called it the credit crunch over here, but the mortgage crisis in the US.
Yes.
So from memory, that was about 2008, maybe 2009.
Yes, it was like August 2008 when everything just overnight started falling apart.
And that would have been a very difficult situation for many people, many of your clients, but also for you personally. How did you navigate those challenges?
It was rough. I'm not gonna lie. It was a terrifying time, and it was rough. You saw a lot of people who were in the industry that maybe shouldn't have ever been in the industry fall out, and that was a good thing. There was a level of professionalism that a lot of us in this industry carried, and a lot of our quote unquote peers did not. I distinctly remember, and again, this goes back to my ego challenges. I distinctly remember I was in the market for a new car, and I had gone to test drive a new SUV. And the gentleman that took me out for a test drive, we were out driving around, and he asked me what I did for a living, and I told him, oh, I'm a mortgage banker, and we talked about that for a little bit, and he said, oh, I do real estate financing too. Now, keep in mind, this was a car salesman.
Yeah.
I think this was maybe a low point in my life. This was a car salesman who was selling cars and doing mortgage loans on the side. And that was a lot of what was happening in the industry, because at that point, honestly, if you could fog up a mirror, you could probably find a way to get a mortgage. So a lot of people that maybe never should have had them or didn't have the responsibility yet to have them were getting them. And they were getting them from people like this guy who was selling cars during the day and doing mortgage loans on the side, right? So post-mortgage crisis, there is a level of professionalism that is required in this industry. There are licenses involved. There are certifications that are involved, and you can't really have a car salesman who's going to do this on the side, which actually is good not only for those of us in the industry, but for consumers who are getting these loans, that they know that they are working with somebody who's a pro, especially if you find someone who's been in the industry as long as I have. I love to find team members, loan officers that we can bring on who've been in the business for 20 plus years, who survived the mortgage crisis and have been through the peaks and the valleys of this industry, because it's very cyclical. And so you do have to be able to navigate the waters in the best of markets and the worst of markets.
Mm. I mean, being able to survive that, I always think if you can survive the downturn, then you can thrive in the upturn.
100%. And we talk about that a lot,
Yeah.
especially now when we're in a little bit of, we've been in a downturn for a handful of years, not from a crisis perspective, but just from a volume of activity perspective.
Mm.
And so, certainly everybody's volume is down over the last few years. And to find different ways to approach the market, or some people have maybe had to go back to sort of, back to the basics, going back to things that maybe they haven't done in a while to generate business, which has probably been good for all of us. Again, kind of a reflection of, who do I really want to work with? Who do I really want to be? How do I want to be out there presenting myself? And I think, some of the newer things that are around now, like social media, and I'll put that in the new category, because certainly in the mortgage crisis, we didn't have that. That gives us a different opportunity to sell in a different way. So you do have to be able to be willing to morph and maybe change the way you do things, and look at opportunities in a different way in a down market.
Mm. I was speaking to someone who's in a similar business over here in the UK, and in terms of showing the property now, they're using drone footage, they're using 360-degree cameras. They're really going the extra mile to make sure the property looks as good as it possibly can be, and that people are getting, a fair view of that property. I don't know if that's similar in the US.
I'm seeing a lot of agents use that, yes,
Yeah.
because people are shopping for homes online, right? 20 years ago, they weren't shopping for homes online. They would call a real estate agent and they would go out and go look at homes and what have you. But now they are shopping online. And on the financing side, they do a lot of shopping online too. So for us, it is making sure you are using technology, not as a crutch to stay behind the computer and to hide behind email and social media, but to use it to enhance what we're doing. Because at the end of the day, people will do business with people they know, like, and trust. And sometimes they get to know us, or, they think on some level they get to know us through social media first, right? So if you are not using the opportunity on social media to get out there and show authentically who you are, don't go out there and try to be somebody you're not, because that's going to fall flat. But it is an opportunity to cast a much wider net through social media, to show who you really are, to show how you do business, and give people the opportunity to get to know you and like you, and then generate business that way. We haven't had that opportunity previously. So it is it's a different approach. And I think people in this industry, whether you're on the real estate selling side or the mortgage selling side, if you're not using technology and you're not using social media or AI or any of these tools, AI and technology is not going to replace the mortgage loan officer, but it is going to replace the mortgage loan officer who doesn't embrace it. Yeah. So if you're not embracing it in your business, you are going to fall behind, and it is going to be a problem.
And do you, in terms of being able to offer a suitable mortgage for people, do you work with a panel of suppliers?
We do. So we've got a variety of different investors that we work with. So, any client that comes through Pinnacle, you're shopping it, and, any one of maybe 40 or 50 different lenders that we have access to. Now, to be fair, there's probably 8 to 10 that we use regularly, but we have a big variety, because certainly not every lender is going to fit every borrower. Every borrower's situation is a little bit unique and different. There's some that's super vanilla that will fit in these smaller boxes, and that's great. If you can fit in the smaller boxes, it's fantastic. But some people have differing situations, whether it's they're self-employed and they report income differently, or They have a bunch of investment properties and they don't necessarily want to show tax returns. They just want the investment properties to qualify on their own. So different loan programs, not certainly to the degree pre-mortgage crisis or credit crunch, as you guys refer to it,
Yeah.
but there are opportunities to finance in different ways, and the industry does need that. At the end of the day, over here, real estate represents about 15 to 20% of the country's GDP.
Right.
In a variety of different ways. So as real estate goes, often is how the GDP will go with the country. So it is a very important industry within the health of the United States as a whole to make sure that it continues to benefit and thrive.
And do you work with commercial properties as well, or
We
is it?
do,
Yeah,
not as much as residential, but
yeah,
most of the commercial stuff we are doing are maybe multi-unit buildings. So think 8 to 10 unit building apartment buildings that somebody wants to buy in as an investment. Those are great investments, by the way.
Mm.
But we do a lot of that.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you. If you were to, if you think back through the experience you've had, through the highs and the lows, through switching career, through dealing with how that made you feel at the time in terms of, where your validation came from. If you were to give someone, three top tips for success, what have you learned on the way?
I think number one, be open to all opportunities and experiences, even if they are out of your comfort zone. We hear all the experts say the growth is outside the comfort zone, and maybe I didn't know that phrase early on,
Yeah.
but I think as opportunities present themselves, embrace them, run with them. Be sure to tell people what you do for a living. That's a great success tip, by the way.
Yeah.
That would be one. I think if you are in a management role, my big thing, well, I have a lot of big things in a management role, but my biggest thing is I will never ask my team to do something I'm not willing to do myself. So, most managers have sort of worked their way up through the process and are probably managing teams of people sitting in a chair that you used to sit in, or maybe even you partially do still sit in. But don't ever ask them to do something you're not willing to do yourself. I don't think that's a fair way to manage anybody. And know who your client base is. Know who your clients are. As when I was a loan officer, when I was a producing loan officer, my clients were obviously the borrowers, right? The
Yeah.
people coming to us to get the loans. As a manager running production, my clients are the loan officers that work for our company. So every day it is about how can I serve my loan officers? My loan officers are wondering how they're going to serve their borrowers today. I want to serve them so they can be the most successful they can be.
Thank you. It's interesting. You just mentioned that word production, and I knew that was in your title. Um, it's not a title that I've come across outside of manufacturing in terms of production. So, what does it mean in your context?
Well, we are manufacturing real estate loans. We're
Okay.
manufacturing loans to allow people to buy homes, to buy investments. I used to work with a gal who said that when people asked her what she did, she said she sold money for a living, which is okay, loosely true. It's a great conversation starter, but we are manufacturing the opportunity to build wealth through the purchase of homes and the purchase of real estate, which should honestly be part of everybody's investment portfolio to some degree. It shouldn't be all of it, but it certainly should be part of it. And whether you have retirement funds or non-retirement investments, real estate should be a piece of that too.
If we could just move sideways a little. I know that you and I have a mutual contact in Samantha.
We do.
Samantha was on one of our previous podcasts, and hence we got the introduction to you. Tell us how you met and what you do together.
So I met Samantha probably about 20 years ago when she very first came to San Francisco. She moved up from Southern California to the San Francisco Bay Area. And at the time, I had, along with two other friends, also in the financial industry, we had started a women's networking group called SKIRTS, which still stands for, I'm not past tense because it still exists,
Yeah.
sharing knowledge, information, and resources together. And what we created was a women's networking group, no offense to the men, but we were like trying to support women in business.
Yep.
That was not so much about the referrals we could give each other, but it was really about growing and learning each other's businesses and really getting deep with each other and letting the referrals grow organically out of that. We had all done referral networks, referral, BNI groups, eWomen's Network. There were various ones, right? And all those groups are great, but they were very focused on how many referrals can you give? And like that, you literally would fill out a form in triplicate and hand it to the person with the referral. And then you'd keep one as record that you gave the referral. And it was so referral focused that I feel like sometimes the quality of those referrals for your business were not awesome. Yeah. So we really wanted to kind of flip the script on that and thought if we just get to know and love each other and want to support each other and help each other grow, the referrals are going to come no matter what. So that was how we developed that. And at the time, we didn't have an insurance person in our group. And Samantha still is in insurance. And so she moved up to San Francisco and we were introduced through another mutual friend and she joined our women's networking group. And that's how she and I first met 20 years ago. So fast forward 20 years, we're still doing business together. I'm in mortgage, she's in insurance. When we have the opportunity to share clients, we absolutely do. I've had her come speak to my team about insurance challenges. Significant right now, right? Especially in California with the fires, and there's a lot happening here. So the more I can help my team be educated when they're out on the streets talking to people, the better. So she has served our team in that way many times. And then we've also expanded our relationship into we co-host a podcast that started during COVID, really just because we kind of missed talking to our friends and we had so many cool women doing cool stuff and we really just wanted to connect with people, right? We were all locked in our homes. So it started 5 years ago and never thought it would be continuing 5 years later when we actually can go out again, but here we are. And then we also, I sit on the board of Sparkle Foundation, which Samantha founded and have sat on that board for 7 or 8 years. And we do our nonprofit service together too.
Very good. Just expand a little bit on the Sparkle Foundation. I know we spoke to Samantha before, but there's no problem in cross-fertilizing the message.
So Sparkle Foundation, again, Samantha founded probably as an official nonprofit about 10 years ago, although the work that we were doing predates that. But Sparkle Foundation supports single mothers and their children, specifically around a few different ways through enrichment scholarships for the children. We do a big holiday gift drive for single moms and their kids. And we now have an offshoot, Sparkle Biz, where we do no interest microloans to single women who either have a business that want to expand or want to start a business. Single moms, we have found, and I can speak directly to this because I not only ended up being a single parent, but very unwittingly became a solo parent when my children were quite young. We are the last really to ask for help. There's a lot of difference in our world outside the door versus inside the door, and we tend to keep inside the door very much to ourselves. And we found that there were not a lot of organizations that specifically targeted the support for these single mothers who are raising these children who are in these situations really by happenstance and certainly not anything the children did, but now they are oftentimes suffering because of it. So to be able to serve that community obviously speaks very directly to my heart. Those are my people.
No, it's great. And as the son of a single mom, more power to your elbow in the work that you and Samantha are doing with that foundation.
We had an annual fundraiser last summer that I emceed for us, and at the beginning, I had everyone first stand up if they were a single mother. We had a lot of single mothers in the crowd, and then I had people stand up if they were raised by a single mother. More people stood up, and then lastly, I said, if you know a single mother, either your neighbor or coworker or a friend, please stand up. There was not a single person seated at that point, right? So the impact that single mothers are having with the next generation of our world is hugely significant. So the fact that that group is oftentimes silent, and I don't want to necessarily say ignored because they are silent, but not supported in the way that, at least what we saw, that a lot of other nonprofits were doing, that was a group that we wanted to target.
Great. Thank you for sharing that with us. Look, I heard you say one of the reasons why you switched career is you had a young family, you wanted to spend a bit more time with them, and yet here you are, senior leader in in this organization, doing podcasts, working with not-for-profit foundations. How do you fit it all in?
Well, Samantha and I talk about the whole fallacy of work-life balance. There isn't one, by the way, and I'm just going to put it out there. People need to stop saying that they're finding work-life balance through A, B, and C. It doesn't exist. So let's just start there. But there is an opportunity to schedule your day, carve out your day. There's for what's important to you. And I think that, whether it's me as a podcast host, me as a single mother, me as a professional, me as a nonprofit board member, those are not independent silos. Those all blend together to make me who I am, right? And there's experiences from each piece that will overlap onto the others. So you can't really say, how do you fit it all in? Because it's all you, right? So you schedule your day, you schedule your week, your month, whatever it is, to support each one of those pieces that are you, that are important to you. And for me, especially as a single mother, it was very important to me for my children to see a strong woman, a good role model, and what can be accomplished in the same. I don't have any more hours in the day than anybody else does, but you can accomplish a lot if you put your mind to it. There's a lot of things that can get done if you put your mind to it and surround yourself with people who will support that, right? So now my children, 24 and 21, my son has graduated from college. He now lives and works in Chicago. My daughter is 21, a junior in college, and they are both very strong individuals, and they can stand on their own 2 feet, and they can navigate their way through the world. And I like to think that a lot of that is what they saw me having to do, and accomplishing despite the odds, in spite of the odds, with the odds, I don't know, whatever we want to say it,
All three.
that, they got to witness that firsthand. And it does impact how our children grow up. And I see my son now, not only as a very strong individual, but a strong supporter of women. And he's got this amazing girlfriend who is also a very strong woman. And, I couldn't see him with someone who wasn't like Grace. Like she's amazing, and she's a professional, and she has career aspirations and life aspirations. And I don't think he would have necessarily ended up with somebody like that if he had some mom who didn't do it, right? So it's not only impacting my daughter as directly as, woman to woman, but impacting my son too.
That piece around, finding someone who's strong, focused, ambitious. I've got to tell you a little story about my daughter. She's 20, recently 20. She's been on the dating scene. And at the start of conversations with prospective dates, at some point she'll ask them what their 5-year plan is. And if they can't give a good answer,
she's my people.
That's not going anywhere. I keep saying to her, name's Lottie. I keep saying, Lottie, do you think you might be scaring them off a little bit? And she's going, but Dad, they need to show ambition. I'm not going out with someone again who doesn't show that sort of ambition. So
we've all wasted our time with those who didn't, and thankfully we don't end up with those people, because it doesn't end well.
Quite. You've mentioned quite a few things that have helped you on your way, quite a few things in terms of tips that would help other people. Is there anything that still challenges you? Those things that even after all of this time and all of your experience.
Oh, absolutely. Every day can be a challenge. Because I am doing a lot, and I am carrying a lot, and I feel like there is still so much on my shoulders that I'm carrying for myself and others. It's a lot. I put a lot of pressure on myself to not fail for myself, but for the people who are counting on me. And every day that can be a bit of a challenge. Sometimes I can rise to it. Sometimes it feels like it weighs me down, right? But I wouldn't have it any other way. I feel like I have enough to give to be able to support those that expect that from me in return. So I have expressed ambition in my career and in my life over the years. And so I be careful what you wish for sometimes. Yeah. I've wanted it, and I've expressed that want, and I've done the work to get where I am. I still have a lot more to do. I still have a lot more ambition. As I continue to grow, there's going to be more weight on my shoulders, but I'm prepared for that. But yeah, sometimes it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, I can think of experiences in my own life where it sometimes feels like that. I sometimes share with people, you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a little voice inside your own head, and it is your own voice. And I say, mine is rarely waking me up to tell me how brilliant I was the day before. It's
Mine
often,
never tells me that. I wish, in fact, tomorrow I may tell myself that we need to start there
yeah,
before we go to all the other things that need to be done or things that I missed or things I forgot to do or whatever it is. Yeah,
yeah,
my 3 a.m. voice is a regular friend.
yeah. Critical friend. Yes, the piece. Um, I've got a couple more questions, if I may.
Yeah.
I noticed those post-it notes that are behind you, a little bit blurred on the screen here. Do you mind sharing with me what they're about and maybe
I,
sharing
I,
a couple of
yeah,
them?
I love this. As you can see, it sits right behind me. So when I walk in my office, it's the first thing I see every morning. And this was from our 2025 sales rally kickoff that we did in January of this year, where we got the whole team together, flew everybody in, and had a day and a half rally talking, giving them information and tools and things that they could take away. But it was also so much about community and wrapping our arms around them and letting them collaborate together, wrapping their arms around each other. We're very big on that here. And what we asked people to do is if they wanted, they had the option of writing on a post-it note. And I'm big on the different colors. So we had a lot of different colors on the tables, but writing on a post-it note, the one word or phrase that they wanted to own for their 2025. And then we put them on a board. And so this represents what the team is, what's really driving the team this year. And it's, growth, it's win, it's, I'll be honest with you, around to find out is on there.
Sorry, say that again.
Around and find out is
Okay.
like we didn't edit, right? Like
Yeah,
we
yeah.
let people they wanted on there. Collaboration is on there. So there's a lot of different really inspiring and words that represent what we as a company want to accomplish and want to be as our driver this year, which is pretty cool.
It is cool. And how
I
do you
get to
think?
in my office.
Yeah. Did everyone else get a photograph of it?
Yes, they did, as a matter of fact. And of course, it sits behind me. So every work Zoom call we do, I don't blur it out, but I, remind them what's behind me every day.
Excellent. And outside of going through the exercise and sharing it with people, how else do you keep it alive through the year?
Keep business alive, keep everybody motivated. Well, we like to think we hire people that have a level of self-motivation for sure.
Yeah.
But again, these people are my clients. The team that works for us is my clients. So every day it is about making sure that they know that, again, I'm never going to ask them to do something I'm not willing to do myself. Sometimes that means collaborating with them on something new. If somebody comes and wants to try something that I haven't done and it's easier for us to do it together, I'm the person that will step up and do it with them. I may not want to do it, but I'm going to do it with them. And also just having them, making sure they know that we will collaborate with them. We have their back. It's okay for them to make mistakes. I'm also very big on the fact that you learn a lot more from what you do wrong, frankly, than what you do right. So they're not afraid to fail. They're not afraid to make mistakes. They know that we will step in. We'll fix the mistake. I'm not worried about figuring out the why and who did what wrong at that moment. What I want to do is fix it for the customer experience, for the loan officer experience. We can forensically review it afterwards and figure out how we make sure it doesn't happen again. But I'm never, when they come to me with we've got a problem, I am all about the solution first and reviewing it after the fact. So I think that very much keeps them motivated to get out there and go out and sell and be able to have the conversations and be able to put themselves out there with the confidence that they've got a company behind them and a team behind them that will support them throughout whatever happens in that day.
It reminds me of something called human factors training, which they use in the airline industry. So one of the big things you want in the airline industry is open and honest conversations and assessment if things happen to go wrong. And they build processes in the airline industry that are a bit like different layers of Swiss cheese. So if there's a failure, there's another slice of Swiss cheese in the way. And if you can
Yeah.
get through the hole in the second one, there's a third bit of Swiss cheese in the way. And they try and build the process out there. And it's either usually human error or process error. But if you don't have that honesty in terms of, this happened, then you can never keep building that Swiss cheese in the right way to make sure it can't happen again in the future and mitigate the risk.
Tell me what the problem is. We'll fix it, and
Yeah.
then we'll figure out how to make sure it doesn't happen again. But bring me the problem. The earlier you can bring it to me, the better I can solve it, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Oh.
Thinking about your role as a leader inside the organization and the other elements that you do as well, what advice would you give to those aspiring to grow in a leadership role, particularly in financial services?
Make sure people know that you want to grow. I think especially for women, we don't actually always talk about what our goals are, what we want to do. And find your mentors. It may be one, it may be multiple, it may be a team, but find those mentors and make sure that they know that you are working to grow, that you're very happy where you are now, but when the opportunities arise and when they feel you're ready, you do want to grow. It's really about communication. Oftentimes we don't express what we want, and then we're upset when we don't get it, which doesn't track, right?
Yeah.
So I would just say make sure you find your people and have them help support you.
And is there a particular mentor that kind of stands out for you that's helped and supported you?
I've definitely had multiple, and at every company I've worked for, I've tried to find that person or people that I feel like I could lean on. And for me, it's been a lot of people over the long term. It's been a lot of people who are not in this industry. It's been some of my very close friends who are professionals also that I can lean on. It's the skirts group type people that can be my sounding board without sitting within the same four walls as me, but certainly understand where I'm coming from and have given me great advice over the years. And so sometimes those mentors may not be at your company, they may be on the outside too.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, if I said that was the final question, I told a little bit of a fib. Because I've just thought of one more. Is there a book or a film or a podcast, apart from your own, of course, that you would recommend?
This is one of my current favorites for people who are in sales. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality, the remarkable power of giving people more than they expect. And back to our, at the front end of this podcast where we talked about customer service and really the service it is and the hospitality service, right? This is actually great for anybody who is in sales. And as I said, almost everybody is in sales, whether they know it or not. So this has actually been one of my favorites, and I refer back to it regularly because it is very much for me about making sure that it is not just sales, but it is providing that level of hospitality.
Lovely. And who's the author of that book?
It is Will, I can't pronounce his last name, but it's Guidara. Guidara, I think is what it is.
I think
but again, called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's one of the books I haven't come across, so I shall have
It's a good one. Pull it up.
I have to order that through Amazon.
Our friend Amazon.
Indeed. Well, Stacey, thank you for sharing some time with us. I found it really fascinating talking with you. It's really interesting hearing about your career. Your passion shines through in our conversation for all of the things that you do. And I look forward to seeing what you do in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Thanks for tuning into this episode of our Sales Podcast Series 3. We hope the insights resonated with you and provoked some thought. If you found value in today's episode, please make sure to subscribe so you never miss out on expert tips and strategies from our guests across different industries. And remember, Delta Learning is here to help you transform your team's performance in 2025. When you're looking to either build capability or deliver better business results, then please approach us as a potential partner. Visit deltalearning.co.uk to learn more about how we can support your team's growth, or email me steve@deltalearning.co.uk with any questions or just to have a chat to see how we might work together. Thank you.